Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
There's nothing to hear.
No, we're talking.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Check your volume on your computer.
I'm hearing everything just fine. Thank you.
But are they, I don't think they're hearing the people there. Can they hear the people on Zoom?
Maybe not.
I think that might be the problem. Good Lord.
Hi,
People
Kevin.
on Zoom hear us now?
Yes, can you hear us?
Cool.
Can you
All
hear
right.
us?
Can, Lila, can you say something to see if we can hear you?
Yes, I'm talking and you're not
Okay,
hearing us.
Okay, the volume is low. Hold on one sec.
And again.
Can you hear us?
Lila, say something again.
Can you hear me?
It's better. Hold on. One more time.
Hello?
That's better. Is that loud enough for people on Zoom? Okay. All right. Okay. So, Alan, you don't have to worry about any volume or sound or anything. You're muted and your volume's off, which
And
is...
I'm going to do live transcription. Someone
Okay.
asked for that, Leah asked for
All right. I thought we could start with Havdalah. And I brought Havdalah stuff. So, let's see.
Alan, Catherine has turned on live transcription for the
Yes.
meeting. And then everyone has the option to turn it on for themselves if they wish to.
Okay, so then everybody who wants to on Zoom can now get live transcription.
Correct.
It's at the bottom of your screen.
I'm gonna, let's see.
And are we recording? We are recording.
So they can see.
Oh, we could do that. Let's see. Whoa. Hold on, let's see. That's a little better. Okay. All right. So, let's see if yeah. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and light the candle. We're going to do Havdalah. We had
What's holding the candle?
Audrey's holding the
Oh,
candle.
you're just a hold.
Yeah. So we had a great start this afternoon to our Scholar in Residence weekend with Rabbi Ellen Bernstein, and hope everyone had some time to rest and relax this afternoon as we prepare to take a deep dive into some text study with Rabbi Ellen. Ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la ya la 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 la, ya la ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh. Ya la 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 la, ya la ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimheira v'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Miriam HaNeviah, Oz v'Zimra v'Yada, Miriam Tichoritanu, Le'agdil Zimrat Olam, Miriam Tichoritanu, Letaken et ha'olam, B'meira v'yameinu, Hitivienu, El Mei HaYeshua, El Mei HaYeshua. Shavua Tov, 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 Shavua Tov. A good week, a week of peace. Make gladness reign and joy increase. A good week, a week of peace. May gladness reign and joy increase. Amen. Amen. Okay. So, I'm going to do a quick intro.
Okay.
But get through the obstacle course here.
Sit over there.
And you want to sit over here? Okay. All right. All right. So, some of us were able to be here earlier today, so I apologize for a little bit of repetition. I just want to acknowledge that this evening is brought to us by the Dr. Maureen Hack Memorial Scholar in Residence Fund that was established in 2017 by her nieces and nephews. Maureen was a longtime member of HaLev. She was a renowned medical researcher and neonatologist, and she loved learning. She was a lifelong learner, and her family felt that this would be a wonderful way to honor her memory by providing an opportunity for some significant learning to take place within our community each year. So we are grateful to her nieces and nephews. They are aware that we are holding this event and what we are, what the focus is with Rabbi Ellen. So I'd like to reintroduce Rabbi Ellen Bernstein. She is an eco-theologian, a spiritual leader, writer, and creative. She's the founder of Shomrei Adamah, Keepers of the Earth, the first national Jewish environmental organization, which started in 1988. Rabbi Ellen's books include Let the Earth Teach You Torah, Ecology and the Jewish Spirit, and The Splendor of Creation, among others. Rabbi Ellen also created the first ecologically oriented Tu B'Shvat Seder in 1988. She popularized Tu B'Shvat as a community-wide interspiritual ecological art celebration for all peoples. Her most recent book is The Promise of the Land, a Passover Haggadah. It's the first comprehensive ecological Haggadah for Passover. In 2020, during the pandemic, Rabbi Ellen launched the Earth Seder movement, helping to organize several dozen worldwide Earth Seders on Zoom. Rabbi Ellen continues to write and teach on the ecology of the Hebrew Bible and serves on the advisory board of the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology. We had a wonderful conversation earlier today, and I'm really excited for our opportunity to learn with Rabbi Ellen this evening. So welcome once again. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to everybody on Zoom. And off we go.
Okay, sounds good. I just want to say one thing before we begin. A question was posed earlier this morning. I just want everyone to know that I'm not avoiding the question and that we're going to get into more detail with it tomorrow morning, I think, because I don't think there'll be enough time tonight. But I actually want you to think about the question yourself, because it is the topic, part of the topic for tomorrow. So the question was something like about why weren't environmental justice, it was sort of like the language of environmental justice versus the language of ecology, and why weren't environmental justice and religion courses taught in college. I was talking about that the field is really called religion and ecology, and so the question was about why wasn't it religion and environmental justice. And anyway, we're going to go there more tomorrow, and we're going to talk about language and how we talk about things. But I just want you guys to think about that question. What's the difference between religion and ecology and religion and environmental justice? And we'll go there tomorrow. Okay, so tonight we're going to take a deep dive into Genesis 1. And Can we put up that list of words on the screen?
That would be, Alan, that's your...
Are those copies?
Not yet. We're gonna be textless to begin with, and then
What does that say there on the screen?
Here we go. Okay, it just took a while. It's
Okay.
there. Yeah.
okay. So basically, what we're gonna do.
Can't see?
Well, actually, you know what? I will pass these out, but don't. I want you to keep them turned over to begin with. So.
Go ahead.
We're not going to read them out loud. I'm going to read it to you, and I want to see what comes up for you. So just turn it over for now. And then when we get into the discussion part, you can turn it back over, and you can take notes and all of that. So we're starting with Genesis 1 for a couple of reasons, because it is the first text, and also because it's the most controversial, and people have very mixed ideas about this text. And so originally this session was for both Genesis 1 and then Genesis 2 to 3, which is, we have two different creation stories. If we don't get to the second creation story, it's okay. That what's in the second creation story is much more obvious and ecologically, and Genesis 1 is more subtle. So that's why I want to really pull what's here out for you. Okay, so what we're going to do just to begin with is I just want to show you this list. Can you show the whole page? Who's ever?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's, the whole page on the screen.
The whole page on the screen.
X out, the thing there.
So I just want to mention some kind of basic ecological ideas. And also just to remind you that the root of the word ecology is ecos. Ecos means house. So ecology is the study of everything related and interconnected in the worldly house, right? The house of nature. So here are some ecological ideas that any class in ecology will look at, okay? And they're up here.
If you could read them to us, because the type is small.
Okay, I'm going to read them, but you can't see them at all?
The type is too small.
Ah,
There's
there's no way to enlarge that? Okay. Can you guys see on this side? Yes, okay.
Should we rearrange the chairs? Okay, if we're going to be using the screen the whole evening?
It's not critical. It'll be okay. I think it'll be fine. Okay. So basically, the ideas are the Earth is alive. Okay, these are ecological ideas. The Earth is alive. It's not like some dead, inert stuff that a lot of people. That's how people have often treated the land. There's an appreciation of habitat. That habitat supports all life. The idea of the integrity of every living thing, that all creatures have integrity. The concept of sustainability is part of an ecological idea that of things continuing forever. Diversity, interconnectedness, and Rabbi Steve was talking a lot about interconnectedness this morning during the service. The idea of wholeness, of everything being interconnected in one whole. A sense of kinship with the natural world. Also then within ecological ideas is like, what is the human relationship with nature? And finally, the importance of natural rhythms and rest. Okay, the rhythms of nature and rest. So these are all some, not necessarily all the ecological ideas there are, but these are several ecological ideas that I want to point out to you. What I'm going to do is read to you the creation story, Genesis 1, and you guys?
They want to see you and then.
Yeah, I don't think we can do it while we're screen sharing. That's the
Can
problem.
that camera be changed? The camera shows.
No.
Because that's that.
It's no one needs to see. I don't think I need to be seen.
They're asking.
Okay.
Never.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'd like you to close your eyes if you are comfortable doing that. You can also take out a pen if you feel like it and write some notes on the back here of this sheet. And what I'm going to do is read the text out loud. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it'll take too long, but I'm going to read probably 4 of the 7 days of creation. And I want to see if anything new kind of pops up for you, hearing it in the context of these ideas that I've just mentioned, okay? So, I know we've all heard this story a million times. I just want to see if anything new arises given these ideas of like the aliveness of Earth, habitat, sustainability, diversity, interconnectedness, wholeness, kinship with the natural world, the human relationship with nature, and the importance of natural rhythms and rest. Okay? So I'm going to start with day 3.
Does anybody have an extra pen?
And also, before I dive into this, I just want to say that I really see Genesis 1 as like a dramatic reading or poetry. That's how I understand this piece. And I also understand it as kind of like an overture for an opera. It's kind of like giving us a broad feeling for the creation of the world, okay? So I'm starting with day 3. Right, and I don't want you to read, but you can take notes. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and God called the gathering together of the waters seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout sprouts, grass seeding seed, and fruit tree making fruit after its kind, with seeds in it upon the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, herb seeding seed after its kind, and tree making fruit with its own seed after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, a third day. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarming living souls, and let flyers fly above the earth in the expanse of the sky." And God created the great sea monster and every living soul that creeps, wherewith the water swarmed after its kind, and every winged creature after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the winged creatures multiply on the land." And there was evening and morning, a fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping things and wild beasts after its kind." And it was so. And God made the wild beast of the earth after its kind, and the cattle after its kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make Adam in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the winged creatures of the heavens, and over the cattle, and the whole earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." And God created the human in God's own image. In the image of God, God created it. Male and female, God created them. And God blessed them and said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill, replenish the earth and master it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the winged creatures of the heavens, and over every living thing that creeps on the earth." God said, "Behold, I have given to you every herb yielding seed that is upon the entire earth, and every tree that has seed yielding fruit. It shall be yours for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is a living soul, every green herb for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that God had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and morning, the sixth day. The heavens and the earth were finished with all their hosts. By the seventh day God finished the work which God had made, and on the seventh day God ceased from all the work which God had made. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work that God created to make. Okay, so what we're going to start out with is just popcorning. I'm just interested in anything new that you heard this time for the first time. And we'll just do that in the beginning, and then we're going to go through what I read, and I'm going to pull stuff out that we didn't pull out together. Okay? Yeah.
So be fruitful and multiply, he tells it to the fish first.
Beautiful.
And I always, you always hear about, the first commandment is be fruitful and multiply, and you only think about it as
Human.
humans.
Exactly. So that's really important, that the first blessing, it's a blessing, right? The first blessing goes to the fish and the birds, not people. And then we're blessed with the same language. Yeah.
Create Adam in our image.
Mm-hmm.
Who's our?
Great. So why don't we play with that a little bit, seeing that you brought it up. So,
Could you repeat the questions?
oh,
I mean,
sure.
that people are saying that
Yeah,
for
sure.
those of us on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. So the first insight.
Oh, also, we can probably take that down now.
Oh,
And-
okay.
Yeah.
Great. Um, so Louise said that she noticed that the fish and birds got the blessing to be fruitful and multiply before people did this time. It's just something that stood out to her.
So the whole notion that the very first blessing that happens in Torah is for the fish and the birds, not people. Okay.
And then Barry said that he noticed that it was when God, the description of God is in the first person plural. Let us make man in our humanity in our image. And Barry asked, "What is this our thing?"
Right, and that's what we're going to talk about
Okay,
now.
great.
So, what comes up for you? I mean, you may have heard in the past, this gets talked about a lot. Who is the our? Who is God talking to? That, let us make humanity in our image, after our likeness. Who is God talking to? What have you heard in the past? Angels, okay, that's one. So, one thing that's really fun about all of this for me, like, one of the things that I get from the rabbis, the ancient rabbis, is to use your imagination. I mean, they came up with all kinds of interesting things, and there are some that are ecological. So angels is one. What else? What else is the we?
There were other gods.
Other gods, yep. That there was a whole constellation of gods. What else? Something like if you were reading it in the King James Version. Well,
They say that kings refer to themselves as plural.
yeah, exactly. That's right, the royal we.
Right.
Okay, so there's that notion. Any other thoughts?
There's a female and a male god.
Okay,
So it was said there are multiple gods.
right.
That could be more in line with the Egyptians, multiple gods.
Uh-huh.
Or Buddhists, but just there is a male-female aspect.
Uh-huh.
There's someone on.
Oh,
Rachel's
okay.
on
Why
Zoom.
don't you,
Yeah, Rachel, go ahead, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just working with a lot of Christians, I think they might say that it's like the Trinity working together, which was shocking to me because I never heard that until I started working with Christians. But I think that's one perspective. But thinking about the ecological framework that Rabbi Bernstein is bringing in, it could be God speaking to the entire world, right? All of the previous creations.
exactly. Thank you very much. Let's, like, we can diminish the first idea. And I actually have never heard anyone say that before, so that's kind of interesting. But, yeah, God's talking to, so this is also a rabbinic idea. It's not just me saying it, right? Some of the rabbis said that God was talking to, right, all the creatures that God's been creating on every day up until the sixth day, right? And that's, let us create humanity together, right? And there's this whole notion that the creatures wanted a human to watch over them so they wouldn't kill each other. Okay?
Huh.
Again, it's a, using your imagination and rabbinic, that's what we do, right? We come up with all these different possibilities. Another possibility was that the rabbis mentioned was that God is talking to the four winds of the four different directions in creating humanity. So great, thank you for that. So what else do we have? What else came up for people? Yeah, go ahead.
Talking about the animals being living souls.
Okay, great.
The use of the word soul.
Great. So the animals have nefesh chaya just as we do. So right there, and actually that's a change from the plant world into the animal world. So the plants aren't called living beings in the same way. So you see a distinction between the plant world and the animal and human world as one. Let's we'll get to you guys again, but Alan?
I don't know, this was new to me, is the paying attention that the earth creates the, living stuff from it, and as does the seas.
Beautiful, Alan, I'm so impressed that you got that. That's really important. So to me, there's this idea that got made really popular in like the 70s of the Gaia hypothesis, the sense that the whole earth is a living organism. And this exactly what you're saying, and I'll point this out specifically, but it says, right, let the earth bring forth. It doesn't say God said, let there be animals. It doesn't say God said, let there be plants. It says, let the earth bring forth. Let the seas swarm with living creatures. So there's a sense right there of co-creation between God and the earth and the seas. And that's a really important idea of the aliveness of the earth, that it's not just stuff for us to exploit. Right? It has its own purpose. It has its own generativity.
And the thing is, it's like way beyond the Bible saying that. It's like, well, that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on one sec.
We got one Zoom person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's the Zoom?
Lila?
Yeah, I was struck by the phrase "after its kind." That there's the seeds are the plants, the seeds. There's a kind of theme of these are going to become self-perpetuating, and I don't know what to make of the "after its kind." What do you make of it?
That's exactly what I make of it. Sustainability, the whole sense that, so we have, and we'll go through this more carefully, we have several indications that the biblical author is actually thinking about the perpetuation of the creation, that it's not just being created for the moment, that it needs to continue forever to be able to sustain the world. So the after its kind is the sense that, there's integrity in the creation, in the the plants and animal life, and that it's going to continue after its kind. Okay, now,
So it's building on what Alan said. I heard for the first time that God commanded some things to happen, and they happened, and then more things happened, and more things happened that God had not commanded. And God even seemed a little surprised, because when it was all over, all these other things that God didn't command, God said, and God saw that it was good. So it was kind of interesting that more happened. Because God just said the earth should bring out seed, and then the fruits made more seeds, but God didn't say all those things.
Great.
So, and then when it all happened and the earth just started spontaneously doing things, God said, that's even better than I thought.
That's great. That's great. Okay.
I don't know if I should try to, I don't know that I can capture what Joel said, but did you guys hear Joel at all?
Yeah, I could hear.
Oh, good. Oh, all right. Okay, good.
Maybe people should walk up closer to the Mike, if they're willing.
Do that. I mean, it does pick up, I mean, I think people actually heard Joel, so, you know, maybe if I just aim the mic at whoever's talking, maybe
That's great.
that'll work. Okay.
Actually, can I have a watch up here? Because I don't, just so I can keep track of the time. Okay, anything else that popped up for anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it appeared that the food that the humans are supposed to eat is vegetarian.
Okay, great. That's definitely vegetarian food. Did people online hear that?
No, but the food was vegetarian.
The food that people are eating is all different kinds of grass. Did you notice anything else in there, by the way? In the next verse?
All
We
the
can go
animals?
back to that. What?
Is that what you were saying, that all the animals were
Yes.
vegetarian? Oh.
No, not all the animals. The people are vegetarian, the animals are vegetarian, but the fact that God is providing food for the animals, period. You know, like, it's not just the people that God is caring about. God, you know, like, again, if you're comparing this to other, like, creation stories, right? It's significant that God, you know, that we have, right, this is a 31 verse text, that we have one verse that's just about feeding the animals. Feels pretty important. Okay.
That's the only part that doesn't fit for me, because, you know, there's a lot of animals that were carnivorous from the start, so maybe humans weren't, but I'm confused about that part, and it doesn't seem to fit, but okay.
We're talking, all these domesticated animals are a lot of what God, right? And they're all eating grasses and, anyway, yeah.
You know, this is sort of non-specific, but when I was closing my eyes in the beginning, it just had this sense of like one big mass, because you said look for interconnectedness of rhythms, and it was almost like something you would see where things just started spiraling, you know, like the seas, the swarms. I mean, there was a melodic rhythm to it, but kind of like people are saying, almost like a spontaneous combustion or whatever, that things just kept coming and creating and differentiating, and I don't know, I had kind of this psychedelic picture in my head a little bit. But the other thing about Barry said the thing about ours, at some point, the them got very confusing. You know, kind of that, I kept picking up like, who is the them, you know? And so it kind of goes along, there were different places where you kept saying, or they or them, I forget. Right, it and them. But there were a few places where
That was still in the section on humanity, right?
It was cryptic. To me, it was a little.
Humanity.
Yeah, it was around, but it was, what part that was cryptic to me is like, who created? You know, it wasn't, anyway, to me it sounded funny, like, did God create, did the animals create, you know, it seemed to shift a little bit.
Okay, well, what we'll do, you know, in a couple of minutes is we'll go through exactly the text so that you can see what we're, you know, if you haven't picked it up as we're going along, we'll go methodically through, okay? So anything else? Otherwise, we'll start. Yeah.
The concept of all the land was together. I can't remember.
It's gathered together in one place.
Yes, so what's it called before we divided?
Pangea.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, one more comment.
I just, maybe I missed it, but is it missing about the difference between freshwater and seawater? Because we're kind of sensitive to that now because of the problem in Florida and no fresh water for the animals.
Yeah, I don't think that distinction is being made. But ready, and everybody's ready here, we'll start looking. So we're gonna start with, again, I didn't do the whole creation because we'd be here too long. So we're gonna start with day 3. And again, just I'm gonna point out what some of the things that we've already said and then some new stuff. And again, keeping in mind those terms that I put up on the screen before. So God said, let the waters be gathered into one place and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and God called the gathering together of the waters seas, and God saw that it was good. So I just want to make sure that you heard the whole idea of the goodness of creation. That was the word good kept getting repeated over and over after each piece was created, each creation was created, and God saw that it was good, right? So does that fit at all ecologically for you? Does anyone want to say anything about what goodness might mean from an ecological perspective?
Preserving all life.
Preserving all life, the integrity of life, right? That every creature that is created has value, is important, is part of the whole system, right? And did you say that quote earlier today about what the rabbi said, that like even the scorpions and all these, the creatures that we might find, unbearable, they all have their place in nature. And Maimonides talked about this, right? Even, 1,000 years ago. So he was picking up on the goodness, and that this whole notion, like when you think about these words first appearing here, and you think about the first thing that's called good in the world are the creatures, right? It's almost like that's what goodness means. And I think like when you start again thinking of seeing these words show up, and when you hear all of this in the creation story first, and then you see it later in the Bible, it's just really interesting to like apply, this is the meaning of goodness, is that the integrity of all of the creatures.
And this, you don't have to answer this, I'm just, as we're talking about good, there's this big traditional, a lot is made out of the fact that day 2 doesn't say it's good, and day 3 says it's good twice. So
Right.
I don't know if you have kind of an ecological read on that, or maybe that's too.
No, I do, but I don't know that I want to spend
that's right.
time on that.
Okay,
But
that's right.
it's in my book if anyone.
All right.
Ellen, so then how do the rabbis deal with the idea of us like poisoning ants and mice and cockroaches, and if they're good?
Well, even kashrut, I was thinking, down the road.
I've never heard any response from rabbis about that kind of thing. So I'm just giving you kind of the ideal, okay? The real is another story. I mean, I think, right, we always have this notion of the ideal and the real in Judaism, and really Genesis 1 is the ideal, and actually Genesis 2 may be more the real, but it's also for us, that's our work, right, is coming up with, okay, here's the ideal situation, how do we actually deal with it? Okay, then we're on verse 111, which we're still in day 3, and at the bottom of page 1. And God said, let the earth sprout sprouts, grass seeding seed, and fruit tree making fruit after its kind, with seeds in it upon the earth, and it was so. I'm just going to read the next verse too, because it reiterates this whole thing. And the earth brought forth grass, herb seeding seed after its kind, and tree making fruit with its own seed after its kind, and God saw that it was good. Okay, the word zera, right, the root zera, means seed, and it occurs 6 times in these 2 verses, right, in verse 11 and 12. So it's like, seed, 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 like, this is really important. Seeds are really important.
I'm getting you started, and now
yeah,
continue.
I'm getting you started, and the seeds, right, we've talked already about other notions of sustainability, but the whole notion of, focusing and reiterating the word seed. It's like, this is really important, pay attention, right? And this is how the world is going to perpetuate itself.
And then zera is also the word used for
Human seed.
Human seed.
Yeah. Right. But it comes from here first, right? Just, you know, a lot of people, like, I didn't have this growing up because I didn't grow up with much Jewish education, any Jewish education really, but I know that Christian kids grew up really with the creation story and really having pictures of each day of creation, and, like, you know, they would memorize what each day of creation was, right? And the third day was always thought of that it was trees and greenery, but it's seeds, right? It's not just the trees are being created. Trees are, but really the message of the third day is this idea of sustainability and seeds, okay? That it has to continue. Yeah.
And I'm jumping ahead for a reason. The seeds are created before we have sun and moon, which is day 4, which is interesting. Because we need sunshine for seeds to grow.
Right.
So it was kind of pre-thought almost.
Well, it's not a perfect, you know, evolutionary path, but it's very close, actually. Okay, so, and again, we mentioned this before, but I just want to say in verse 112, the earth brought forth grass, right? It's not God bringing forth the grass, it's the earth bringing forth the grass. So it's just, again, the sense of the aliveness of earth, that earth has a generative element to it. Okay. And then we have, and God saw that it was good, and there was evening and morning a third day. Okay, we're going to jump to day 5. And God said, so day 4 is the luminaries, the stars and the moon, and it's, one of the things that's interesting is the concepts of light and the concept of time happens on day 1, 4, and 7. And then, so you can make this whole interesting, you know, diagram, and yeah, you have the earth bringing forth the animals. So there's this correspondence between the second day and the 5th day, and the 3rd day and the 6th day, and the 1st, 4th, and 7th days. But it's really hard to explain it without making a diagram. But anyway, okay, so on the 5th day, God said, let the waters swarm with swarming living souls. So again, we have God co-creating with the waters, and we have the souls, fish as souls. And then God created the great sea monster and every living soul that creeps, wherewith the waters swarmed after its kind, and every winged creature after its kind. And God saw that it was good. Again, we have goodness. Let's see. Okay. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters, and let the winged creatures multiply on the land. So the first blessing, as we said, that was the first thing that we picked up, was the first blessing is for the fish and the birds to be fruitful and multiply. Okay, again, how do you be fruitful and multiply? Seeds. So we have this idea of sustainability coming through in multiple ways, right? We have sort of the sense of the earth being alive. We have the seeds happening. We have after its kind happening. And we have this idea of blessing. Blessing is allowing for more fruitfulness and multiplying. And again, the language of be fruitful and multiply, it's also about sustainability, right? So we have like 5 different ways that the idea of sustainability is built in to the text. I think that is the most sort of the strongest idea. If you're really looking at the creation story, I think that the strongest idea that's coming through is this idea of sustainability. And, you know, the idea of life perpetuating itself without any help from us, right? We don't need any human help for life to go on. No question?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
You know, maybe it's slightly off, but like, we keep referring to fish. That's just, because I mean, the sea has got turtles and alligators and whales and all kinds of things, right? So, that's just how.
It's swarming creatures. It's all the creatures that swarm. So, you know, they're making, you know, I mean, remember poetry and drama, okay? So they're creating different categories of animals and talking about them all sustaining themselves after their kind. They're not, you know, reproducing across species. Okay, so now day 6, and we didn't actually talk about this very much yet. So we just talked about the pronouns here, but there's a lot more to say in day 6. And because this is what I was talking about this morning, the whole dominion passage, okay? So God said, let the earth bring forth. Let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping things and wild beasts after its kind. So again, and you think, you know, the ancients are going to be more interested in the domesticated animals. That's what they were living with. That's what they depended on. So that's why we have a lot of that there. And God made the wild beast of the earth after its kind, and the cattle after its kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth after its kind. So again, these you know, genetic lines are very important. And God saw that it was good. Okay, now, and God said, let us make Adam in our image, and we talked about this, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and the winged creatures of the heaven and over the cattle and the whole earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So that's 126. And then God created the human in God's own image. So this is what you were talking about. In the image of God, God created it. Male and female, God created them. So do you want to say anything about this passage? Hermaphrodites?
Well, that's a pretty
Common.
well-known midrash, is that the original human was two-sided. It was a single creature, and it was male and female. And the reason that this language is kind of where the singular and plural are kind of put together is because the notion that there was like two creatures in one body, in a way, or two half creatures in a single body, and well, that's all I'll say.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, but I love that, like, again, this fluidity and this openness to possibility of what could be going on here, you know. Okay, now Genesis 1:28. So first of all, so we have the idea, right, that the other creatures are helping God, right, in this creation. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and master it and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the winged creatures of the heaven, and over every living thing that creeps on the earth. Okay, this is Genesis 1:28. This is the verse that I was talking about when I introduced the whole topic during services this morning. So this is the line that is infamous in environmental circles. And this is where people have said that because of this line, that the Bible is responsible for the environmental crisis. So I'd like to know what you think of this.
Joel?
So, I don't find anything in dominion. Dominion does not mean to destroy.
Right.
It means to regulate and manage.
Okay.
So if we're commanded to have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the winged creatures, it absolutely does not give us license to destroy them. That's not dominion means. It means managing, regulating, and, taking care of.
Okay, great. Hang on one second, and we'll get into the Hebrew of that too, which is, I'm sure, something that will interest you. But okay, so thank you. So for you, dominion means like regulating, managing. Did someone have a comment?
There's a Zoom
Why
hand.
don't you?
Yeah, Lila and Kirby.
I was just going to ask about the Hebrew for dominion, so we'll get
I'll
into
get there.
that later.
And Lila?
And Kirby? Yeah.
I was actually thinking the same thing. There's all this, how much of this conversation is about the English word dominion and its meaning, rather than the Hebrew word, which might have 3 or 4 meanings or nuances, right? So, but sounds like you're headed there.
I'm gonna get there.
For those of us who weren't there this morning, could you kind of back up, and you said you mentioned this morning.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So let me just tell you why I translated this as dominion to begin with. Okay, I used this, and I'll get to you with that. So dominion is the King James translation, and it's it probably is also in the JPS from the early 1900s, because the early JPS, which is the Jewish Publication Society Bible, which is, I imagine, what you use, a later version.
That's most of what we have.
Yeah. So, so the word dominion was used. Okay, so what I said this morning is that when I was in college, in the early 70s, I was in one of the first environmental studies programs in the United States. And one of the things, we read this article by Lynn White called The Historic Roots of the Ecological Crisis. And in it, he talks about the Bible as being part of the problem of the environmental crisis. And he points to the language of dominion. And he doesn't say specifically Genesis 1:28, but that's what everybody assumes that he's talking about. And in the environmental world, it's very, very common, and in environmental studies classes, for people to continue this idea that the whole sense of dominion is an exploitive sense, and that's the cause of the environmental crisis. And so people are, and for me it was like, when I finally understood this as a young person, it's like people are blaming the Bible all the time for everything. So, but for me, this is really important because it's still being taught,
Or justifying. As opposed to blaming or justifying, using the Bible.
Going either direction, you
Going
mean?
either direction.
Right. That's like the mirror image of blame, is like if you want to say,
This is why I'm doing it. Yeah. It's okay for me to do it.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing a lot of.
Right. You see that? Okay, so yeah, people are actually, right. I mean, there's a way in which it's completely understandable that people are saying this, right? Because they're concerned about what a lot of Christians who had power, right, throughout history, how they were treating the earth and saying, we have dominion over the earth, so we're gonna exploit it. So you're right, you're totally right. As a Jew reading this, though, right, what's really interesting about this passage, you know how in the Bible, right, you have the rabbis commenting on everything, right? They never comment on this verse. They don't comment on the dominion parts because, like, Jews never had land. So they couldn't, like, what does dominion mean? What they commented on, they read this verse, what did they comment on in this verse? What do you think the rabbis commented on in Genesis 1:28? What was the first mitzvah? Right, that's all they read. That's all they saw there, that we're supposed to be fruitful and multiply, and we're going to have 1 million kids, because that's what this says. Like the last part, the rabbis, it's like they didn't even notice it. Yeah,
Right now, what's on notice, you were talking about before, that when it says, and God saw that it was good. You could argue, that, of course, God knows it to be good because God's God. So on the one hand, it adds drama to it. On the other hand, you know, one could say, you believe in God or whatever, that, you know, God knows it's pretty good because God's doing it, so why even say that?
Like it should be
obvious, but it's not. And
But it's not God talking to himself, it's God talking to us. Yeah. Right. I mean, God knows it, but we don't. We need to know it.
And
I mean,
it's
that's the
poetry.
point of the Bible.
And it's poetry, and you often repeat things.
And there's also a comment over here with Miriam.
So then, in 128, how do you reconcile master and dominion?
Okay, we'll get there.
Okay.
No, we're going there. I just want to see it. We're going to talk about the words master and have dominion over in a second.
There was a comment in the comments on Zoom from Rachel. She said she doesn't quite get why only Adam is in our image and nothing else. Are they referring to Adam as Adam, or are they referring to Adam as
Humanity.
humanity?
Humanity.
But only humanity is in God's image.
Right.
Yeah.
That is right. I mean, the animals have already been created, and humans are created in God's image.
But not animals.
No. I mean, no.
Not according to this text.
Not according to this text.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that explains it, Rachel, but you can ask a question if you want. Yeah.
No, Miriam had a comment.
I was just gonna say that, like, the other thing that I studied ecology in college, and the other thing I often heard in terms of 128 is not just about exploitation, but the creation of a hierarchy and a dualism between humanity and other forms of life, and how that is problematic for environmental or ecological ethics.
Okay. So one of the things the way that I often think about the Bible is that it's not prescriptive, it's descriptive. And it's so meaning that the biblical authors were looking at humanity and looking at how we live, and they're talking about it. All right. So to me, it's not like telling humans that you can have dominion. It's almost like saying that's what people are doing. I mean, we have a specific kind of intelligence. We stand upright. All of these things that differentiate humanity from the rest of the world, and we have this kind of intelligence where we can take responsibility for things. We can destroy stuff, or we can make stuff better. So to me, it's not this horrible thing that we're created in God's image and the rest of creation is not in God's image. We're different. It doesn't mean that's bad, in my opinion. Okay, was there another question? Otherwise, I want to go to the Hebrew.
Nothing on here.
Okay. Let me just check it for 1 second. Okay, so we have two Hebrew verbs. We have for have dominion over. Okay. Does anyone know what this is? I mean, are there Hebrew speakers who want to say anything about that? No? Okay. So there's two words that are really similar in Hebrew, and the shorish, the root, is resh daled hay, which is radah, is to have dominion over. Okay, so Rashi said that so there's let me just tell you, there's another verb too, which is similar to the Reish Daled Hey, and it's actually exactly the same in one grammatical form, and it's yarad, which means to go down. Okay, so in like the future form, the future plural form, I think, yardu, which occurs in the Bible, it's the same for both have dominion over and go down. So it's the same spelling of the word, okay? So what Rashi said is if you behave appropriately, right? If you lift up the creation, right? If you help the creation do what the creation is meant to do, you like support the creation, then you have dominion over. And if you exploit the creation, you go down under the rest of the creation. So it's like they'll have like dominion over you. Okay, it's like you go down under the level of the animals, is what Rashi was saying. So it's like and to me, this is what's really important, is that having dominion over is conditional. It's on the condition that we behave justly towards the rest of the world. And if we don't, in Rashi's idea, we go underneath. And it's in the Hebrew, and I think that, it's probably not just Rashi, right? It's a pun, right? You wonder why certain words are used. And to me, a lot of times words are used because they have multiple meanings, right? And so that maybe that's why this word was chosen. So that's that word. And I think it's like, to me, most people who aren't Jewish are going to read this text, they're going to have no idea about that. And it's a huge, window into what the meaning of the verse is, And again, it can be read both ways, so it just opens up so much more if you know the Hebrew. And then the word for master is kavash, which is so first of all, let me just say, can you spell it?
Yeah,
I don't
think
have
it's
it.
Kaf Vet Shin, I believe.
Yeah. So let me also say that, because people have, a lot of times I've taught this, and then people go and look up in a modern Hebrew dictionary, and that's not going to be helpful, because the modern Hebrew isn't necessarily going to have the same nuances as biblical. So there's a special biblical Hebrew dictionary that you look at. So kavash, people talk about it as, it means to like conquer. That's how you're going to see that word in other like modern Hebrew contexts and also biblical contexts. But always you have to look at the context of what's happening here. And
it means what?
Conquer. Conquer is what it means in modern Hebrew. And it can also be used that way in biblical Hebrew, but it basically also means to tread upon, right? To tread upon. And so a lot of people talk about this as the beginning of agriculture, that's what the conquering is. It's the treading down to be able to use the earth to grow food, okay? The thing that I want to emphasize, though, for me, it's all about context, right? If you're reading, what did we do? We just read this whole creation being created, and each time God saying it was good, right? And we have sustainability happening here. We have all this beautiful stuff going on. Then why would God come along and create humans to exploit the natural world? It just seems like so contradictory. And that's what was always so troubling for me, Wendell Berry, I don't know people know Wendell Berry. I mean, he wrote about this like 30 years ago. He couldn't believe that people were critiquing this verse because, you know, he's talking about the goodness of everything. Why would God, it's just like, is God that stupid that God is going to want to create humanity to come and, you know, foul up what God has just created? Yeah.
But there's a whole history of interpretation, right? So I think like Jewishly, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but the history of Western civilization is more Christianity.
Right.
And so I think like both can be true. We can say, oh, if you look at the full context and you look at the Rashi, but you can also say that like that this verse has also been part of the way that the Western world has thought about the earth.
It's, yeah, but it's like, I agree with you. But what I'm trying to say is like, people weren't reading Genesis 1. They just took that verse.
Totally.
Right? They just took the verse out of context.
Yeah,
And
there's
like
a
exploited.
history. I'm saying there's a long history though of doing that.
It's 2,000-year history of taking the verse out of context. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, who?
Lila.
I'm gonna let Kirby go because I've had a lot of.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Leah just told me that she couldn't hear the comment that Miriam made, that that there's a 2,000-year history of interpreting this verse out of context in the way that Rabbi Ellen's talking about it, and that's also that's a real thing, even if it was a mistaken thing. That there's a lot of weight.
There's a reason for the environmentalist critique, even
Right.
if it's not taking the full Jewish context in. Yeah.
Right. A reason
Right,
for it. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
like I went to Sunday school with friends, and you know it became the ground. You know, man was created last; he had dominion over the earth, and that's the start of a power hierarchy that goes. You know, a husband has dominion over his wife, and you know Christians have dominion over other people that start from the 19th century. I'm just wondering whether that verb, that conquer, whether that is, I mean, is it also that, would you also use that word for, to talk about people, relationships between people?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I just don't know. You know, and again, this is how this is being used in this context. So, yeah.
Kirby.
Yes, sorry, I can't seem to figure out anymore how to raise my hand electronically. There's no option for it here. I'm just still puzzling about this this word vada, the resh dalet hey. One of the concepts behind reciprocal relationship with the universe or whatever is this idea, and Robin Wall Kimmerer brings it up, the science of the fact that humans were actually tending the grasses in order for the grasses to be sustainable, right? And I had thought that maybe the term, that Hebrew term of dominion or rule, had some flavor of that, like Adam tending the garden. Do you hear any of that in there?
Thanks for that question, actually. Let me just tell you that what I've heard, actually my friend Ted Hebert, who was that?
Someone
Oh, you were talking about Ted. Yeah, my friend Ted Hebert, who's a Bible scholar, he's always saying to me how whenever he teaches farmers, you know, when he's out in the Midwest or whatever, reading this passage to farmers, old farmers, like conservative farmers, they hear in the have dominion over and master the earth, what they hear is farming, that we're supposed to take care of the land because we're farming it and we need it to sustain itself. So I think that's the best I can do in response to your question.
I have a comment.
Yeah, somebody else can
Yeah,
call
Louise?
people.
So dominion can also mean sovereignty. And there's God's dominion. And obviously, God's dominion, we're not talking about God destroying things.
Right.
We're talking about God's taking care of things.
Right, and then again.
So why is dominion for humans destroying, and why is God's dominion sustaining?
Well, what's your name?
Miriam.
You can ask Miriam. I mean, yeah, again, it's because like people are taking the one line out of context and people have destroyed because they've wanted to see humans on a pedestal and that we get to destroy everything and use it however we want. But that's not what the text is about, right? So that's another text, that they're appropriating that text, right? I want to say one other thing though, because I like where you guys have been going around the word dominion, because just thinking about dominion, again, I like to use it because I like to, because that's the word that's been critiqued. But I also feel like the word dominion has dignity to it, as you're talking about, and because it's used so much in the Christian world. And there's the idea of domus, right, and household, right, domesticate, dame, all of those words that are associated with a home and taking care of a home. Okay.
I have a thought.
There's some. Okay.
Related to that, I was just curious, this rhoda and your dot, the go down.
Yeah.
If there's any other, and you may not know, like other examples, even in Genesis where, they play on that verb or that word at all. I mean,
that word only appears there.
Only here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why this is such a denigrated verse, because.
Because I was thinking of Joseph, the whole thing of Joseph and the dreams and the. Anyway, I just wondered if in other.
Yeah, I don't.
Could it be translated as caretaker then? Or?
Yeah. You could translate it that way, or, control, manage.
Be responsible for it?
Yeah, be responsible for. The idea of radah is kind of an overseer, because it's like an over and an under, right? The yarad is going under, the radah is over.
So I just wanted to.
And then we have him.
Yeah.
So that clarifies
All right.
master, because master, the art of managing, you master by studying and
Yes.
watching what's going on around
Yeah.
you, then applying.
Right.
So in that sense, master makes much more
It does.
sense with the rest of
Yeah, I
it.
really
Could
like
we,
that too.
could we, wait a minute, we had a comment that these are not being picked up, so could you repeat that?
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, Art Biajanti said that this conversation illuminates how the notion of master, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this justice, Art, but that the notion of master, which implies, I think, learning how to do something. Am I?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Like a mastery. Oh.
Which, as opposed to a personal, someone who is the master of the place. So it's a different use of that term. Yeah.
Active verb.
Yeah.
So what I was going to comment on is not about dominion, but about this whole concept that we're talking about, and probably everybody got it already, but it just came to me. There's a sense that when you go out in nature and you appreciate nature, you say, wow, this is amazing, this is wonderful. But what this is saying is what you're saying is it's important. It's not just an appreciation, that there's a holiness, that there's a spiritual aspect that's important to include in this, rather than just like isn't it wonderful that nature replicates and sustains? But it's more.
Great. Okay, so I want to finish on time.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to move through a few more ideas. Okay. So we're on Genesis 1:29. I just want to just reiterate. So again, we have the notion of dominion embedded in a context, right, where everything has been created up till now is good, it's sustaining itself, and now, even after dominion happens, God's giving food to people, like a certain kind of food to people, and then to the animals, they get a different kind of food. And so you get this compassion to animals that's happening right after dominion. All right, so again, the context is incredibly important, and that's what's been totally missing in the whole conversation about this, right? Is that, again, the, context, both before and after. Okay.
Now, don't we usually think of herbs sort of like as a flavoring?
No.
More than as a, like...
That's not what's meant here. Different kinds of green vegetation, basically. Okay, so then we get to this really important verse, Genesis 1:31. Did anyone pick up on anything in this verse that's different? Very good, okay? So this is really important, right? This is the 6th day. The animals were created first on the 6th day. God saw, first of all, let's just go back one verse to 130. I'm just going to read out and listen to the language, the word every, the word kol, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is a living soul, every green herb for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that God had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and morning the 6th day. So, what's very good? Everything. Everything is very good. Everything interdependent is very good. What do most of the commentators say in recent history, and what are the Christians saying? Humans, that what was very good on the 6th day are humans. That's what's if we were to sit here and I would have asked you this before we had studied anything, and I asked you what's very good on the 6th day, some of you would have said humans, because that's what the same thing about who gets the first blessing. You know, everybody thinks, you know, that the who gets the first blessing is us. So might have been you, I can't remember, just this whole thing about what's the human place in the creation here, right? This is an incredibly important verse saying it's not, this is, who is saying that we're the crown of creation, right? Somebody was talking about that, right, that we're created last and everything builds up to us. No, right? Everything is building up to everything all together. And not only that, what comes on the next day? Shabbat.
And that's the crown.
And that's the crown. Okay? So, but that's not how, you know, most people are reading this. And it's just, you know, incredibly unfortunate to me that, you know, that this story, which is like the most common story in the world, we could use this story to mobilize religious people, right? And it's been used in the opposite way. So I just want to say one more thing. So remember, we talked about sustainability, and let's just reiterate the ways that sustainability shows up in this story. Just, what did you learn? In what language? After its kind, seed, what else? Blessing, right? The blessing is to be fruitful and multiply. After its kind, seeds, okay. And
Living souls, well, I don't know if that's.
okay, anyway, this is good enough. I mean, that's like 3 or 4 things right there. And I want to show you one last thing that has to do with sustainability. It's the very last line. Now, this line is usually translated, too bad we don't have any Humashim here. But you know, one of the things also is translations, you know, anyway. So this line is very weird. What you have is my translation of Genesis 1, and it's a very literal translation, okay, word by word. And that's what this last line is. God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work that God created to make. What is that? To make. To make is cryptic. You know, when do you end a sentence with a verb? To make what? To make, what have we been looking at?
Creation.
To make more, continue, for it to continue, right? So you have this whole sense, like, it's kind of like this last line caps off the theme of sustainability that we keep seeing throughout the Genesis 1, that God rests from all the work that God created to be making more and more of itself. So I state my case.
That's great. Yeah.
So, like I said, it's already after 9. Genesis 2, right? So Genesis 1 is like a cosmic reading of how the world is created, and I think poetic and dramatic and idealistic. It's like the ideal. And Genesis 2 to 3 is like humans are created first. So it's, in my perspective, it's more human-centered than Genesis 1. And it's really all about the development of humanity. But you see, like, humans Adam being developed out of the Adamah. And most Jewish environmentalists say that Genesis 2 and 3 is the real environmental story. But I completely disagree with them, because I feel like what you're getting is like a sense of science and the whole cosmos in Genesis 1. I mean, I believe both stories are important, but it's another piece of like how certain things get privileged and other things get overlooked. And So
I just want to thank you for a really interesting and thought-provoking and inspiring session this evening. And we will reconvene at Sherry Park tomorrow morning, Sherry Park Party Room, for session 3.
So that's the first building you come to.
The first building.
Take a right.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying there's 2 Sherry
There
Park.
are 2 Sherry Park
So it's the
buildings.
first
The one closer to Cedar.
South building.
Close.
theater, yeah.
So, and I want to thank Catherine and Alan, and we had other Zoom hosts for this evening. And I want to thank the Biajantis for helping us, for hosting here at Acacia. That was really wonderful to be here. Yeah, we can clap, sure. Yeah. And look forward. So tomorrow we're gonna talk about what Judaism has to offer the environmental movement. Yes.
yes, but we're also going to talk about language, and we're going to talk about the whole question of like a language of what's the difference between environmental justice and ecology,
Yeah.
and just for you guys to be thinking about that. We're going to break into small groups and talk about, how language can help us and how it gets in the way. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for
Thank
being
you.
here. We'll see you tomorrow. I hope many of you, not all of us. And, yeah, have a good rest. And don't forget to set your clocks back tonight. It is fall back. We are going off
Extra
daylight
hour
savings
sleep,
time.
yay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the vision of a generative
Greens.
creation.
Leafy greens is the most healthy thing you can eat, right? So it was very good.
Well, that's why the Seventh-day Adventists, they eat what they call the diet of Genesis. 'Cause they don't even, I don't even think they eat, I don't think they even eat like potatoes, like.
So lots of kale and collard greens.
I think so.
So they are the blue.
I know we don't
have time.
They are one of the blue.
Is that true that
It looked like red, in California is one of the.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, they live, this was one that, I mean,
I did not know that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mute here. Okay.
Yeah,